Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stone Steve behind the scenes featurette. So, basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the different stages of creating this film, starting with pre production, moving on to production, then post production. We'll talk about the release, and then we'll wrap things up. Before I dive too deeply into the pre production of the movie, I really have to talk about the background surrounding the third Experiment Trilogy film. The Experiment Trilogy was something I had decided to do back in 2014. Party Animal, the original third experiment film, would have been basically me writing about and creating a film that incorporates a lot of things that I was either too afraid to talk about or things that affected me, in the past, and basically just laying it all out in one film. So essentially going past my safe zone and making something a little bit, different. When I was nearing the end of, everything involved in my cancer, I kind of looked at the movie and it didn't feel important to me anymore. I thought it was an excellent story and I was it will be told in a different medium, but I just felt that to put so much effort and time into this feature film when I had not as much heart into it as I did previous, it didn't feel right. It felt like a disservice to myself and to anyone who watched it. During the chemo process, I thought it would be funny to write a movie that I was dubbing the anti-Drunk Max movie, while still following the same principles of Drunk Max. Essentially, it would be writing a movie while high. Once I decided to do that, once everything involved with my chemotherapy was done, I knew that the second I looked more like myself, like I had hair growth, I would create this film. So, in the meantime, I was working on the script. I had written a script, and I thought it was so fantastic, and I said, okay, great, this is the script, and it was very much like Drunk Max. It was like a lightning in a bottle kind of thing. There would be no drafts or anything like that. And unfortunately, my computer, which is quite old, it malfunctioned and my hard drive was corrupted, and basically everything I had on my hard drive was wiped. So, including this script that I hadn't saved or backed up or anything because it was so recent. I basically written the script and then the wipe happened before I could even back it up. So I had to rewrite the movie, which I hated because I felt like all of a sudden I was just trying to capture what I had done before. But the newer script in itself is something unique. There's an alternate universe where I had produced the original script, and I don't know, maybe things had gotten more solid. But with all of this in mind, I had the story finished, and basically I just waited until the effects of the chemo had worn off from me. I had hair, I had eyebrows, I was able to grow a beard. I looked more like myself, and I said, okay, great, let's film this movie. Considering that this film is very short to begin with, the production of the film was fairly short as well. It was pretty easy to shoot, especially since we had a son and we had kind of gone through the motions with Family Edition and Drunk Max 3. This was our third film being made after becoming parents, and it was my first movie post chemo that I was making. But no, it was actually fairly easy. The only day that was a little bit rough, generally speaking, and involving our son, was when I filmed his cameo with him and my wife and I all together. That was extremely hard to do because he just did not want to sit still for that moment. But aside from that, it was pretty normal. Um, I had faked being high for the first day of filming, and it just didn't feel legit as it did, when I made the Drunk Max movies. I was drunk every single day. So following day one, I rectified that, and I found it was easier to get into the character of Steve for the rest of the shoot. My favorite filming day was the band scene. That was partially an idea that was reformatted, um, but the idea of A View to a Kill being used in an instrumental part of a film was something that I had came up with for another movie I was writing for my friend Brian, and it was a scene that immediately was vetoed. It was me and him and some and a friend of ours that we were all writing the movie together, and the scene was vetoed pretty early on. I can't remember who it was that cut it, but it didn't appear in any more drafts following the initial one I had included in. So I had included it in. So I said, well, if they didn't like it, let me just stick it here. And I did change it, obviously, to be something different, but it was something I knew I'd wanted to do for a film, and I was so happy I was finally able to do it. Um, and it's my favorite scene of the movie, and it was my favorite filming day because it was so fun dressing up as different characters and trying to bring like a different persona to every character to make them like different and unique. So that was fun. That was the last day of filming for the film, and it was actually it was my favorite day too. Just as with production, post production was also fairly straightforward. No reshoots were involved. We had everything that we needed with the movie. Again, it was very short, so just cutting it all together. Um, yeah, I mean, cutting it all together and forming it. It was a pretty quick process, and it didn't really require any reshoots of any kind. Um, my wife didn't help me edit this movie, but we did see a rough edit of it, and she did suggest a restructure of some of the stuff in the latter half of the movie, which I felt was excellent. It was such a good choice. I think it was that we swapped around the order of what Stone Steve did throughout his day near the end of the film, and it was definitely something that I think turned out for the best, as opposed to the order that I had. It just helped the movie flow better, and yeah, it turned out to be an excellent suggestion, which I always enjoy receiving. I hadn't done a real release or premiere for a movie. So with Stone Steve, I said, you know what, I really want to do a premiere. I did one for Bachelor Party, I did one for Drunk Max. It only feels right that the final Experiment Trilogy film should get one. So it was a really cool premiere. We showed Bachelor Party, then we showed Drunk Max, and then the idea was we'd show Stone Steve. The only problem was only one person showed up. A few people had said they were going to show up. Some people just didn't respond at all. Some people said they couldn't make it, but my friend Brian was the only one who showed up. So it was just me, my wife, and Brian, and we saw the film. And my wife and I had gotten so much pizza and so much food, thinking we were gonna have more people show up. And so me, Brian, and my wife just ended up eating a shitload of pizza that evening. And it was really good pizza. It was a local place that's delicious. So it wasn't really much of a premiere, but that following Monday, I did post it on YouTube. It was online for everyone to watch, and I haven't really heard anything from people. I don't know if anyone really saw it, but it's up there, and it kind of concluded a lot of things. So I was happy to finally release it. I consider this not only the final film in the Experiment Trilogy, but I also think this is the last film in what I would dub Phase 2 of my filmmaking journey. Um, from like 2003 to 2010, I would say that all the films that I directed and created in that time span, I always dubbed Phase 1, where I would say I'm a student filmmaker. And then I started realizing, well, we're always student filmmakers because we're always learning. So it's kind of asinine to really say that. Just say you're a no budget filmmaker. Um, and Phase 2 really began in 2012 with the release of Crazy Random Happenstance, the movie, and it really blossomed with Bachelor Party and the Max movies and the beginning of Stones of Family Edition. Just experimenting and going outside of the box and creating things, and sometimes they failed, and sometimes they were a success. Sometimes I really enjoyed it, and other people really hated it. And it was just a time where I feel flexed my muscle, and I think that really helped me come up with new ideas that's going to usher in the next phase, the third phase of my filmmaking journey, which will begin with my next film, The French Assassin with a Bad Comb Over. Um, Other than that, it was very nice to finish the Experiment Trilogy and not leave it hanging. For a while, I really thought it was just going to end up being two films with the cancellation of Party Animal, and I will tell the story of Party Animal one day. But Stone Steve really did feel like a nice way to end the Experiment Trilogy and kind of like this phase of my filmmaking life. There will definitely not be any sequels. I don't have any ideas. Steve was fun, but I really just have nothing else to say with him. This is kind of like a one-off film, so that's why I put that title card at the end, and I did that for to make a statement like, no, don't worry, nothing's gonna happen. And also, it was kind of a direct message to my friend Brian, who jokes around with me that most of my films are all sequels, or that I always come up with sequel ideas and I stay in one sandbox for too long. So, in this case, no, this was the last one, and that's kind of how it's going to end. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this behind the scenes featurette. I hope you enjoyed it, and be on the lookout for future videos related to my films and new films themselves on my YouTube channel. Alright, guys, thanks for watching. Take care.